One Tuesday morning, a woman opened her mail to find a letter demanding $50,000 from her homeowners association. The fine was levied against a home she originally purchased for $180,000, citing issues like unapproved shutter colors and alleged damage to a community pool she rarely used. A $50,000 demand for minor cosmetic infractions acts as a financial lever, applying enough pressure to force a homeowner out of their property. Across the Maple Ridge neighborhood, several families were already facing identical compounding fees. The people signing the notices were a corrupt HOA board, specifically driven by the compliance officer, who happened to be the targeted homeowner's own older sister. Her sister leveraged the compliance officer role to issue a series of escalating citations, betting on the silence and submission that had characterized their family dynamics for years. The board was unaware she had been quietly working as a professional forensic accountant. Her entire career was built on untangling messy bookkeeping, auditing local businesses, and tracking missing money. Forensic accountants do not fight their battles using emotion or screaming matches in a driveway. They fight by requesting the ledgers and following the paper trail exactly where it leads. State law requires every homeowners association to provide its financial records to any homeowner in good standing upon written request. Most residents never use this right, but a manila envelope containing 200 pages of budget reports soon arrived in the accountant's mail. This chart represents a standard HOA reserve fund, a regulated savings account built from dues for infrastructure repairs. But as the graph shows, this fund lost nearly 60% of its value, systematically transferred into vague, miscellaneous consulting categories. Public business registration records are easy to search. 3 of the vendor names receiving those transfers traced back to a single shell company called Ridgeline Property Partners, registered just 2 years prior. The listed manager was Corey Whitfield, the husband of the HOA compliance officer. These records reveal a pipeline designed to move community dues through shell companies and directly into the private accounts of board family members. This flowchart outlines the specific 4-step cycle the board engineered to steal homes from their neighbors. Step 1 is target and bleed. The board issues sudden, oddly worded violations to vulnerable homeowners, blocking every attempt to appeal, letting compounding interest turn small citations into massive debt. Step 2 is the siphon. While the homeowner panics, the board quietly wires cash out of the community reserve fund into their private LLC under the guise of consulting fees. Step 3 is the shell. The private LLC approaches the financially underwater homeowner and extends a fast, predatory cash offer to buy the property. Step 4 is the flip. The desperate family sells well below market value to escape the fines, and the LLC quickly flips the house for a massive profit. The community's annual general meeting was scheduled in exactly 19 days. That meant there were less than 3 weeks to build a legally bulletproof case to present on the record. Preparation required quietly visiting affected neighbors to gather notarized statements. It meant pulling property deeds from the county, cross-referencing public LLC filings, and aligning the exact dates of the violation notices with the eventual distressed home sales. A white-collar extortion loop relies entirely on the victims only seeing their own isolated fines. Once the systemic pattern is documented and visualized on paper, the scheme falls apart. Under the association's own bylaws, every homeowner has a guaranteed right to speak on the record during the annual general meeting. When Thursday evening arrived, the clubhouse was packed. Rather than making an emotional plea or arguing over the fairness of a paint color, the accountant approached the podium and handed out the hard financial paper trail directly to the gathered crowd. She walked her neighbors through the transfers, the vendor names, and the public records. Then she explicitly connected the manager of Ridgeline Property Partners to the board's own compliance officer, laying out exactly how the fines funded the home flips. As residents looked at the ledgers, they began calling out their own experiences with phantom violations and unsolicited real estate advice from the board. Meanwhile, a neighbor in the back of the room started live streaming the entire confrontation to thousands of local followers. Institutional corruption thrives in the shadows of private bureaucratic meetings and isolated warning letters. To destroy it, you have to drag the ledger into the inescapable light of a public forum. By the next morning, the state agency overseeing nonprofit corporations opened a formal inquiry. Simultaneously, the shell company's bank accounts were completely frozen by authorities, and the county district attorney's office began reviewing the transfers for wire fraud. The perpetrators were forced to resign immediately. The LLC manager swiftly lost his position at his law firm, and the board members were removed from power by a neighborhood vote. A newly elected board reversed the fraudulent fines, and civil settlements provided restitution to the families forced to sell. The community also passed strict new bylaws, mandating independent third-party audits of the reserve fund every single year. Bureaucratic bullying and financial fraud rely on the assumption that victims will remain isolated and financially illiterate. The system works by making the target feel powerless against an official-looking clipboard. Being underestimated by abusers is an advantage. When you gather the data, expose the paper trail, and stand together with your community, you remove their leverage completely.